called pressure. Not only do I get the graveyard shift, but I'm holding you back from wine as well.
No pressure.
Thank you for having me, everyone. I think first and foremost, let me thank all the other presenters, Caroline and Lisa. I promise you, we've not seen each other's slides, but from what I've taken from the talks just now, I can see that there's a massive overlap between what I'm going to talk about and what's been said before. But there is also a twist to what I'm talking about. I'm talking as just a dad, just a husband, just a regular bloke who has been through quite a lot in the last 2 to 3 years, and also someone who's still working in my full-time job as with HSBC, as you've kindly plugged, and trying to start a parallel world within coaching and within other arenas as well. Big thanks to Tristan and the Change Partners for inviting me as well. Given how busy I am with just being a dad and just being a husband, a lot of the content you'll see today, you might have seen before. You might have seen it out there on the internet, you might have seen it on some podcasts, and I've referenced those sources. My journey today is really going to be talking very much about some of the experiences I've been through in life, how that has fundamentally changed me as a human. Got rid of what I call the shitty values I had that I've been growing up with in 20 odd years in corporate world, replacing them with what's core and fundamental to me, and how that has had an impact on me trying to understand the menopause better, not just the menopause, but lots of areas of life. But the thing affecting my family at the time was my wife's struggles with the menopause. And so that's the angle I'm coming from, but it all started here. This is supposed to say disconnect to reconnect. No, and it certainly is disconnected, that slide is. So, like most of you, I suppose, every so often we go for a holiday just to disconnect. I disconnect from social media, disconnect from WhatsApp, disconnect from everything other than my own core family. When you come back, you reconnect a better person. This was the idyllic setting, actually, that got me here in the first place. And to describe this scene, I guess, usual type of holiday, sitting around the pool, watching life go by. This was the view. And I think happy hour started at around 11. And I noticed this one geezer who used to get there at 10:59, right? He was in, right? And I even remember that it was a Chang beer, and I think it was a Whispering Angel. Yeah. And so towards the end of the holiday, I thought, I'm tired of just doing water sports with the kids, this, that, the other. I'm actually going to go join a happy hour and have a Chang beer myself. And the surreal part of this was we're in this setting in Koh Samui, very nice hotel. We could have been talking about the food, we could have been talking about the weather, we could have been talking about our activities, but somehow we got talking about menopause. It happened. How did that happen? And it wasn't just us. There was another guy from England as well. The guy who looked like Chris Martin from Coldplay. You remember him, right? He was sat over there somewhere. Tristan and I were here. And we just heard a voice saying, "Are you guys talking about the menopause?" Shit, we're onto something here. We're onto something. Maybe men need to start talking about this. And I think Tristan just over WhatsApp a week or so ago, what was the phrase he used? It was the power of human intervention. This is the power of when people talk. This is the power of breaking through that cycle of waiting for someone to say, "Talk to me," and actually just go and break the ice and talk about what's on your mind. So we're sat there in Koh Samui, 3 of us talking about the menopause, and that's why I'm here right now, because Tristan mentioned this event to me then, and he said, "You know what, I've got an event where I think you might want to come." Hacking my own mind, that's supposed to say. So I've been on somewhat of a journey, and this slide here is something I can talk to for a day or two, but I clearly don't have that, and you're going to miss a lot of hours of drinking wine if I do. The source of this diagram here is Vishen Lakhiani, the CEO of Mind Valley, and also the founder of Mind Valley. And this essentially captures what I've been through, and a map of consciousness, as I call it. And it's fundamental to the changes that I've been through and the process that I continue to go through. Most of us all live in this level 1 category here called the culture scape. And the culture scape are generally the norms, the rituals, the beliefs that you're born into, the society around you, the world that you think you should be living in and aligning to. And it's one that we all accept. It's one that we generally think, right, this is what I do as a person, as a human, just get used to it. Not everything in this culture scape is sensible. The 9 to 5 is an example. You know, is it better than flexible working? We don't know, probably not. I think there's a balance to be had. What happens in this culture scape is that you begin to get trapped. You begin to feel there's actually no way out of it for me. How do I get out of this? And generally, I realised that I was trapped in this culture scape. I still am to an extent, but I've got 1 foot out of it already. And I needed to work out how do I get out of it. More often than not, the way you get out of it is by questioning everything in this culture scape. Your friends, you're still in it, mate, so don't worry. Your family, the people you hang out with. There's that old saying, you look at the 5 people that you hang out with the most and you ask yourself, are these really the people who I want to represent me going forward? The things you believe in. But by questioning everything around you, you start to suddenly choose the world that you want to live in. And more often than not, you're pushed into this. You have an awakening that actually pushes you into that environment. I'm not going to spend too much time going into level 3 and 4 because we don't have the time. But level 3 is where, once you've been through the awakening, you start to recode yourself. You start to take a look at your inner values compared to your exterior values, and you start aligning the two together, and you start creating the world that is inside of you. So the world that you're living on the outside becomes closer to the world and the values that you're trying to live on the inside. I hope I'm making sense because this is quite theoretical. And then what? You become extraordinary, and nowhere near that at the moment, but I can safely say I do have a foot in here right now. And once you become extraordinary, you can change the world that you yourself are living in, and you're living in the world you want. And the great thing here is that when you reach this stage and this stage, the stuff that bothered you in this stage, the shit that bothered you when you were here, you actually see it as a gift. You see it as a gift. You see whatever happened to you here, that used to get you deeply upset, deeply annoyed, a fight with your partner, that no longer bothers you because you see that as a gift. You see that as a learning opportunity. You see that as a place to grow. And that's what happened to me. Why on earth have I got the Finchley Road sign here? Because this is where my awakening happened. So I work for HSBC at the moment. I've put my hand up and said I want to leave. I want to start and build my own life. HSBC has been great to me. I know this is being recorded, so I've taken the decision to start to recode another path that I want. I've got commitments, so I have to continue my corporate life. But for the best part of 10 years, I've been commuting to Canary Wharf, and in order to get to Canary Wharf, I changed at Finchley Road. And this is the first time I've spoken about this in public, other than maybe with this guy here who knows the full story. Now, I can't go into the full story just because there's a lot of personal stuff in there. But as I get off the train at Finchley Road, I usually just step over to the platform over here to get the Stratford train to Canary Wharf. The train was coming in, and I had lots of thoughts in my head at the time. There was lots of stuff going on in my life, and the next thing I knew, I woke up sitting on a bench at Finchley Road. I woke up with lots of people around me and station staff looking over me, and I woke up and I just thought, wow, what's just happened here? What's happened to you, mate? What's going on? And what had been going on in my life around that point was not that fundamental, I think. It was just the shit was adding up. The pressure was adding up everywhere in my life. My wife is a GP. She was seeing her patients die through COVID day in, day out. I was at home with 2 teenage kids, working for the biggest bank in the world, the pressures that come with that. I just missed out on a big promotion, which affected me more than it actually should have. And I was essentially feeling a prisoner in my own home. And we have a very nice house, we have a very nice house, but it felt like a prison. It was at that moment that when I got up off that bench, I said to myself, enough, this is absolutely enough. When you get back on this train, you're going to change as a human. You're going to start recoding yourself. And so I realised I'd been on a hedonic treadmill up to that point in my life. My values were run up a mountain, get the new car, get the big house, get the fancy holiday in Koh Samui, start talking to strangers, and go through all that stuff. Quickly realised none of that crap matters. It does matter to an extent, of course. I want to provide a good house, I want to provide a good education, but a lot of that stuff did not really matter. Fundamentally, it was my kids, my wife, and my children. That is it. That is it. And having a good connection of friends. So I, in that moment there, decided I am going to start changing myself, and change my practices. I started following a guy who you probably know, Jay Shetty. At that time, he wasn't as huge as he is now. And he really helped me get through some of the problems I had at the time. I chose to go on to qualify as a Jay Shetty qualified life coach because it was helping me. The qualification came into secondary. And through that process, I began to understand, what can I do as a man? What can I do as a human? What can I do as a person? And what's this got to do with the menopause? And this is the actual notepad in 8 Candace Way, Canary Wharf, where I was in a meeting room, and I'd just spoken to my wife in the morning, who was having some major ups and downs with the menopause. And I'd been in a meeting, about 10 people in that meeting, making notes about the menopause. Then I just scribbled this, and I just thought, if I look at this, what's that telling me? This is telling men to pause. I thought, oh shit, this is mental. and my boss was sat next to me, saying, what are you doing? And I said something you should have done 20 years ago, mate. And so this is a small example, but a small thing, which was some sort of intervention coming up from there, which made me think that I actually need to start understanding this thing called the menopause a bit better. But as a man, I know we've had great definitions of what the menopause is, and I'm so grateful, because I was really worried I was going to have to do the scientific bit because your training is going to be wrong. I'm so grateful for the definitions, but if you actually try and decipher what the menopause means and what a man needs to understand, I'm not talking about menopause, that's another day, we're talking about menopause, let's understand the menopause. It's really hard. It's really hard to understand what is the menopause from a man's perspective. 1993, this image still sticks out there. You do a Google search to try and understand what menopause is, this comes up. And so, get Robin Williams having a hot flush, right, in Mrs. Doubtfire. And then I thought, all right, let's try and find some more intelligent definitions. So the definitions that I found, NHS talks about lower hormones, okay, beginning to give me something to understand. There are things you can do to help with symptoms. There are also medicines that can be taken. All right, great. What's that actually mean in practice? Then you go to the Institute of Aging. It says Larissa, whoever she is experiencing the menopausal transition, a normal part of aging. It talks about physical conditions, and it talks about taking on responsibilities with relatives. Then the NIH, the National Institutes of Health, the menopause is a permanent cessation of menses for 12 months, resulting from estrogen deficiencies and is not associated with a pathology. I've got no idea what that means. No, absolutely. And my wife's a GP. I asked her, what does this mean? And you know, the GPs aren't necessarily the best qualified for menopause stuff. So I literally paused and said, I don't understand what the heck is being said here. I don't understand it. My wife is up and down, as you described in your talk. I really want to try and help. So I listened to lots of podcasts, read lots of literature, and I came up with a definition that works for me. It may not be scientifically correct, but this is what works for me. It's when your wife, partner, daughter, or any other female in your life is experiencing chemical, emotional, physical changes in her body, usually in her middle ages. Say usually because it doesn't always happen, just in middle ages, resulting in a range of impacts, including mood and behavioural changes. Why wasn't I taught this? Why wasn't I taught? I've had menopause training as a manager in the biggest bank in the world, which is a great bank. And I've not been taught this. It will impact your daily life on a varying scale. You talked about not knowing what you walk into. I know, I face that. I know, right? And could last for a significant period of time. And the key thing for me is, we've tried HRT, we've tried other medicines, but the one thing that has worked, and we've had men asking questions in here, is me changing from being an idiot, right, and saying, and actually understanding that strong bonds, knowledge, and support will help a lot. But when I say being an idiot, that's actually wrong. It's really hard for us. It really, really is hard. It's very, very difficult to understand what causes this. Until you hit the pause button of that menopause, you're not going to understand. You're not going to take the time to understand. And again, Caroline, you talked about the 28-day cycle. As someone who's worked in banking all my life, I need a bloody Excel to understand. And I've adapted this from Dr. Mindy Peltz. You can hear her interview with Stephen Bartlett on the internet as well. I need to understand how long does it last. So it lasts potentially 28 days. 28 days. What happens in those 28 days? You get, estrogen building here in the first 10 days. The way I understand it, estrogen is the chemical that changes your moods to becoming more outgoing, more present, becomes super, super sharp. Cool. That is when my wife is bubbly all over the place. I've walked in and she's like, "Whoa, let's go watch De La Soul." She said that to me the other week. Right? We had tickets to watch De La Soul, and I was like, "It's Monday night. We're going to go see De La Soul." So okay, cool, flow, go with it. So what did I do? I gave space, just let her get on with stuff. I'm learning. I still make loads of mistakes. Don't take this as me operationalising this. I'm not. I'm trying to learn how to do it. But it's given me a framework. So this is the time for conflict resolution. Maybe to have a few dinners, maybe to go to parties, not bloody De La Soul, just a dinner party with the neighbours would be good. And then you get to day 10 to 14. Again, the way I understand it, please shoot me if I'm wrong. I'm quoting a doctor, right? Because I don't have time to go and do the research myself. This is the time where the testosterone is increasing. She's feeling really good. She's even flirty at this stage, right? And what I say, support it. Indeed, this is where you take Sabre for dinner, right? It's where you light a few candles, support it. Next stage, tired just getting up to day 15 to be honest. From day 14 and onwards is where the hormones start crashing. This is where the word I can't pronounce, progesterone, starts increasing. And the way I understand it, this has the opposite effect to estrogen. It pulls you down. And have any men experienced this? Have they seen the up and down behaviour? There's not that many of you here, so I can directly look at you. And you're nodding your head, you're being too shy. And so I think this is the opposite of estrogen. They don't want De La Soul. There's no De La Soul. This is where the Kim Kardashian, Netflix, binge watching, At Home with the Kardashians comes out. This is where she's generally feeling low. And I've noticed this. Likes to sit around, so not feeling beautiful. Binge watching. And I'm the worst person to talk about binge watching because I hate it. But at this stage, even I'll stay quiet. And this is where the interaction is low. And so my behaviours, the behaviours I try to follow, this is not printed on my fridge with a fridge magnet. It's not. It's I try to be nice, try to take extra care and pass compliments where I can. This is not the time for conflict resolution. This is the time to be more huggy, more kissy. Watch the Kardashians. Watch it. Watch at least one episode. Sit on the sofa, watch it. And manage the situation at home. What does that mean? This is actually the most important thing for me. oops, managing the situation. And what do I mean by that? What I mean is that I don't know what the situation is going to be when I come home from work or my wife comes home. Assess it, hit the pause button, look at the body language, look at what the signs are telling you, look at where on this 28-day scale do you think she is. If that means that you've got to do a bit more, do a bit more. If you've got to change your actions, change your actions. And so this is essentially a diagram which is working for me at framework level. I do screw up. God, I'm a master of screw up. And I do screw up, but joking aside, this framework for me as a man really helps me. It's etched in my head. Pausing, observing and watching the behaviours and shifting your patterns at the right time is really important. And something like this works for me, and hopefully it can be a guide to some of the men in here. Bring this back to workplace practices. Now, I do lead teams, and I lead teams across with different cultures and different geographies and so on and so forth. So I've got some experience with this. 2022, a poll was done which said that essentially 18% of women were looking to leave jobs because of menopause symptoms. I'm surprised the number was so low actually. The most common reason, 42%, was because of the pressures put on them. Lack of flexible working. And this is one, right? A lack of understanding from management. That's a killer, isn't it? A lack of understanding. How can you not understand it? If someone's broken an arm in your team, you'll understand. If someone's having emotional difficulties, you as a leader, as a manager, should be able to understand, should be able to gauge and go into your uncomfortable zone to have conversations. The next bullet, I use it with a pinch of salt. So screw the guidance documents. It's not always the case. You do need guidance and policy documents that set the right tone, but setting the tone on a piece of paper means nothing. You have to act. You have to make the changes. You have to act as a role model. I'm proud to say at HSBC, when it comes to ethnic inclusion, me and my team did do this, and we got the bank to listen. We put together a safe environment to talk about ethnic inclusion and diversity, and we shifted the scale within the bank and within the industry. But it started by me and a couple of other people just engaging in discussion and conversations at the right levels. And sometimes that's all it takes. Have one-to-one discussions with your team members. Give them confidence. Give confidence to your team that you're ready to talk beyond policy and framework. These are your team members. Some of them have been around for 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, however many years. You should know the individual by them. As leaders, as male leaders, and even as female leaders, you should have the confidence to talk to your teams about anything that's affecting them in their 360-degree life. You should have the intuition, you should have the triggers, the signs that give you an indication if something seems to be up, and engage in the conversation around that. If you're scared of saying the wrong thing, if you're scared of using the word menopause, then get over it. Get over it. I think you've got to find the right way. It's similar to when people were afraid to talk about race and ethnicity. That shouldn't hold you back from having the conversation. You have the conversation in the right way. Don't assume moods, watch reactions, put reminders in teams' diaries. I've done this. So brain fog, 75% of my last team were actually female, and a number of them in different times were forgetting things. Rather than say, I know you're forgetting things because of menopause, so I'm going to put a reminder in your diary, create a SharePoint link, put team key milestones, team key events, key deadlines, put them onto the SharePoint, put them into a collective team diary. You know what you're doing. You're doing it because you've realised there's something going on with a team member which you don't want to address by just typing the person, so create something generic which supports them. Equally, there'll be times where those team members are creative. Assess it, find it, look at educational resources. In Spain, I think they've introduced 3-day menstrual leave. It's been introduced as a standard to be taken whenever they want. And I've put here post-menopause. So this bullet probably doesn't belong here, but the way I understand it is that I'm pausing because I'm not a scientist or a doctor. It does end. It does end, I think. And post-menopause, from people I've spoken to, and I've had a chat with my mother, I've had a chat with my aunties, and I come from a very traditional culture where we don't talk about this stuff. And I've sat down and spoken to them. They said, yes, it does. You know, we do get through that cycle. We do get through the barrier. It gets better. We get better clarity. We become handle stress better. So it's this massive change you're going through, and you know, who are we as men to compare, say, menopause to this, when in fact I think the game is totally different. Women give birth, not everyone. You create human beings. Even regardless of that, the physical, emotional, and the emotional interference is pretty crazy. And for me as a husband to not understand that, and that was me for the first 14, 15 years of my marriage. For me not to understand that, I just don't think is acceptable, and I've gone on a journey to accept that and work with it. The messaging is all around the place. Before all the guys come up to me afterwards and take me into a corner, we are just dads, we are just husbands, we are just men. We are not trained at school, we're not trained in corporations on how to deal with this. And so we need to be cut some slack, but we need to find a time, a scenario where we can hit the pause button to start understanding what the menopause is and how we can help you. Don't be restricted by a healthcare system that is overburdened. We've got amazing doctors here. One of them's in the room here. My wife is a GP. You know, she's not given the tools to practice proper menopause treatment. They're not given the tools. Let's help them out. I found a common ground with my wife. I specialise in lifestyle medicine. I'm not a doctor, but it's my niche in coaching. So I've helped her with healthy eating habits, as Hippocrates said, let food be your medicine. Physical activity, stress reduction techniques, positive social connections. Tristan's becoming a positive social connection. This guy WhatsApps me 5 times a day with his latest record in the gym. Whether it's a 4-minute kilometre run or whatever, but it then pushes me. It then pushes me to train harder. So having positive social connections is really, really important. Avoiding risky substances. We've got wine coming, let's skip over that. And having sound sleep. These are all things, when integrated with traditional medicine, surely can only help. And finally, I guess what I'm trying to paint is that, you know, I've worked as a management consultant, I've worked in banking, I've worked with royal families in Saudi Arabia, unfortunately, and I work for the biggest bank in the world at the moment. I've been spending most of my time running up a mountain, and I've been trying to get to the top of that mountain. I've come across certain valleys as I've been trying to sprint up that mountain, and I decided to jump over the valleys, just to say, you're getting in my way, move across, I'm trying to get to the top. And I got burnt out, it burnt me out, I lost touch with who I am, actually what are my core values. It's only when I went into those valleys that I started to determine there's actually gold in here. There's actually things that I can learn. So I'm still going up the mountain, but I'm taking a different path, I'm taking a different route. And I encourage everyone to just pause, go into those valleys, take your partners into those valleys, and understand where you go to from there. Jesus, that's a bad short legs. So if you want to get in touch with me, it's my website, sanjpathak.com. I'm on Instagram, emails there. I guess the key thing I want to point out is I've got podcasts coming out in December on Apple and Spotify. And it's a unsponsored podcast, and my entire intention is to grow young. Let's grow young. And from an emotional and a physical basis, I'm taking on biohackers who are clouding this space that we live in, promising longevity through tools and techniques that don't make much sense. I'm bringing people who've had emotional journeys and come through them, and I'm bringing together people who have lived pretty fruitful lives and to learn experiences from them. And I'm organising some workshops in 2024. That's me, I've been a busy man. This has only happened over the last year or two, and whatever you guys can do to, whatever I can do to help you guys to get men to talk about the menopause, please contact me. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Sanj. That was amazing. It's really good to hear things from a male perspective as well, isn't it? Because we all make it about us. Yeah, we all make it about us, but actually we need to remember that everybody is part of whatever it is that we're going to go through or that we're going through. So really appreciate it. I know there's loads of questions. I was collecting the cards and then realised I couldn't read anyone's handwriting. Come on guys, we already have a GP here. So what I'm going to ask is